The summer air was thick with heat when Ethan drove to the small downtown market. He had promised his friend, Claire, that he'd pick up her cousin Lily from the bus stop. He hadn't seen her in years, not since they were teenagers. Still, he remembered her laugh clearly. It had always been bright, almost musical. When he arrived at the bustling bus stop, he scanned the crowd. People were laughing, haggling over fruits and vegetables, and the scent of baked bread drifted through the warm air. And then he saw her, Lily. She was standing under the shade of a small oak tree, looking slightly lost, clutching her bag a little too tightly. Something about her seemed different, older, calmer, yet something in her eyes was quieter than he remembered. He parked, stepped out, and waved. "Lily?" he called softly. Her head turned, and a smile broke across her face. It was the same smile he remembered, but it had grown softer, more reflective. She walked toward him, and he noticed a subtle hesitation, as if she was unsure what she was stepping into. "Hi, Ethan," she said, voice gentle, a hint of nerves hidden beneath. She dropped her bag into the car, and he helped her with it. "Thanks for picking me up," she added. "You don't need to thank me," Ethan replied, trying to hide the sudden tightness in his chest. He had always thought Lily was special, but seeing her now, years later, made that realization hit harder. The drive was quiet at first. The city passed by, sun casting golden patterns across the dashboard. Lily's gaze was distant, focused on something far away. Ethan stole a glance at her, wondering what memories were crossing her mind. "So, how was the trip?" he finally asked, breaking the silence. She shrugged, letting out a small laugh. "Tiring, but fine. It's good to be here again." Ethan noticed a certain weight in her tone. Not sadness exactly, but a stillness that hadn't been there before. He didn't know what to say, so he stayed quiet, hoping she'd open up. They reached Claire's house and parked in front. Ethan opened the door for Lily. As she stepped out, she paused, taking a deep breath, as if the sunlight on her face was awakening something long buried. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them held a fragile tension. Ethan realized that seeing her now wasn't like meeting an old friend. It was like discovering someone familiar in a new story, a version of Lily that time had shaped, quietly, subtly, but unmistakably. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Lily smiled at him again, softer this time, and stepped toward the front door. But just as she reached for the handle, she froze. Her hand lingered there, eyes fixed on something unseen in the distance. Ethan followed her gaze, but saw nothing unusual. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low. She turned to him, a flicker of something in her eyes he didn't recognize. Hesitation? Maybe a memory? Or maybe fear? She shook her head slightly, forcing a smile. "Yes, just thinking." Ethan wanted to ask more, to understand what had shifted in her, but he sensed this wasn't the time. Something had changed, and he wasn't sure if it was something he could fix, or even needed to. She stepped inside the house slowly, and Ethan felt the room shrink with her presence, though nothing had really changed. There was just something new, something quiet, and it made the ordinary world feel suddenly heavier, more charged. As he sat in the car a moment longer, waiting for Claire to return from the kitchen, Ethan's eyes kept drifting toward the window. Lily was standing in the sunlight, still and fragile, like a memory caught between moments. He wondered, silently, if she even realized how much she had changed, or how much he was noticing it. And then, just as he leaned back in his seat, a faint smile crossed her face, one that didn't quite reach her eyes, and he felt a strange, gripping sense that the day ahead was going to be unlike any other they had known. The front door clicked behind Lily, and Ethan followed inside, trying not to let the tension show on his face. Claire was in the kitchen, humming softly, busy with tea. The smell of chamomile and fresh cookies filled the room. "Lily! You're here!" Claire exclaimed, her voice bright, almost oblivious to the quiet undercurrent in the room. She hugged her cousin, then stepped back, scanning her as if seeing her for the first time in years. "You look different." Lily smiled faintly. "Different good, I hope?" "Very good," Claire said with a laugh, though her eyes flicked to Ethan as if asking silently what he thought. Ethan only shrugged. He didn't need to answer. He'd already seen the change, the subtle way Lily carried herself, the way she looked at the room, the world, differently. They settled into the living room, sunlight streaming through the curtains, painting patterns on the floor. Claire chattered about neighborhood news, new cafes, and friends, but Lily barely responded. Her eyes kept drifting to the window, to something beyond the street, and Ethan found himself wondering if she was remembering or expecting. "You okay, Lily?" he finally asked gently. She turned to him, lips parting in a small smile, but her eyes held something deeper. "I'm trying to be," she said softly. Her voice sounded almost like a confession, though it wasn't directed at him, or maybe it was. Ethan didn't know how to respond. He wanted to reach out, to ask her to share, but words felt heavy in the quiet. Instead, he watched her, studying the faint lines of thought on her face. There was a stillness there, a pause between who she had been and who she was now. Claire poured them tea, and Lily took a small cup, holding it with both hands. Her fingers trembled ever so slightly, and Ethan noticed it immediately. Not from fear, he realized, but from something else, an internal weight she was carrying. "Do you want to go for a walk later?" Ethan asked, hoping the outside air would help ease the tension. Lily's eyes flickered toward him, and she nodded slowly. "I think I'd like that." They finished their tea in silence, the air filled with unspoken thoughts. Ethan could feel the pulse of something unsaid between them, a delicate line that hadn't existed before. He didn't want to cross it, yet every glance at Lily pulled him closer to the edge. Later, they stepped outside. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows over the pavement. Lily moved beside him with a grace that seemed natural, yet unfamiliar, like a song he once knew but couldn't fully remember. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" she said after a few minutes of walking. Her voice was hesitant, almost fragile. "Anything," he replied. "Do you ever feel like someone you used to know has changed, and you don't know if you can recognize them anymore?" Her words hung in the air, soft and heavy. Ethan paused, considering. "I think, yes. And sometimes, even if they're changed, you see pieces you remember, and that makes it feel familiar and strange at the same time." Lily nodded, letting his words settle. She glanced at him quickly, then away, as if afraid he might see the emotions she was trying to keep tucked away. They continued walking, the city quieting around them. A soft breeze stirred the trees, carrying the scent of late-blooming flowers. Ethan felt a strange pull, the kind that made you hold your breath for no reason. He wanted to ask her about what had changed, about the stillness he noticed in her, but he didn't. He feared the answer might break the fragile rhythm they had just begun to find. They reached a small park, benches lined in neat rows, and Lily stopped. She looked at him, eyes wide, then down at the ground, as if gathering courage. "I've been different, Ethan. Maybe more than I realized," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. He took a careful step closer. "You don't have to explain anything right now. I'm glad you're here." Her lips curved into a tentative smile, one that held a hint of relief. The stillness in her shifted slightly, but the weight in her eyes hadn't lifted entirely. As they sat on the bench, the sun slipping behind distant buildings, Ethan felt the moment stretch. There was a quiet beauty in the change he saw, yet also a question that lingered, unspoken, between them. He wanted to reach out, to steady her somehow, but the right words stayed locked in his chest. Then, unexpectedly, Lily looked up at him, eyes glinting with something unreadable. The stillness around her seemed to thrum with unspoken thoughts, and for a moment, Ethan felt the world pause with her. The park was quieter now, shadows stretching across the grass. Ethan and Lily sat on the bench, the soft hum of distant traffic filling the space between them. Neither spoke for a while. Words felt unnecessary. Sometimes silence held more weight than conversation. Ethan watched Lily twist her fingers around the edge of her sleeve, a gesture that seemed both small and significant. He remembered her from years ago, always vibrant, always ready with a laugh. But now she seemed more contained, careful, like she was measuring each movement. It made him ache quietly, noticing the change. "You've changed," he said finally, carefully. Not in a critical way, more like an observation. Lily looked up at him, her expression unreadable for a second. Then she smiled faintly. "I know. I think life does that to people. Sometimes it leaves pieces behind, and sometimes it carves new ones into you." Ethan nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. There was wisdom there, yes, but also something fragile, almost sorrowful. He wanted to ask what had happened in the years apart, what shaped this new version of her, but he feared it might shatter the delicate balance of the moment. "Do you remember the old ice cream shop by Claire's house?" he asked, trying to steer the conversation gently. A small laugh escaped her. "Of course, we used to sneak out and buy double scoops, pretending Claire didn't see us." "That's right," Ethan said, smiling at the memory. "And you always picked strawberry and chocolate." She chuckled, a sound that seemed lighter than the quiet heaviness that lingered in her. "And you always got vanilla, even though you hated it." They laughed together, the tension softening slightly. For a moment, the years between them seemed to collapse, leaving only familiar echoes of laughter and shared memories. Ethan realized that even with the changes, some threads of who they were before still lingered, delicate but unbroken. After a while, Lily's gaze drifted toward the small pond at the edge of the park. The water reflected the golden light, rippling gently in the breeze. She stood and walked over, Ethan following. "I like sitting by water," she admitted softly. "It makes things feel quieter, like the world slows down a little." Ethan joined her, watching the reflection of trees and sky shimmer across the surface. "I get that," he said. "Sometimes you just need a still moment to catch your breath." Lily nodded, eyes fixed on the pond. Ethan noticed a flicker of emotion there. Nostalgia, perhaps? Or regret? Or maybe just a reminder of the person she had been, and the one she had become. He wanted to tell her how much he had noticed, how her quiet strength and subtle change affected him, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he let the silence stretch between them, comforting and unsettling all at once. Minutes passed, and the shadows grew longer. Lily finally turned to him, her expression soft. "Ethan, I've been carrying a lot, more than I realized. Coming here, being with people I knew, it's harder than I expected." He reached out, placing a careful hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said quietly. "I'm here. I'll listen if you want to talk, or just sit with you if you don't." She gave a small, grateful smile. For the first time that afternoon, her stillness seemed less heavy, almost gentle. Ethan felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. There was more to her story, more to the change he had noticed, and he had a sense it would reveal itself slowly, in fragments. The sky was shifting to the soft pink of early evening when Ethan realized how long they had been sitting by the pond. The moment was serene, but it also carried a subtle tension, a quiet promise that something was coming, something neither of them fully understood yet. And then, just as they were about to leave, Lily turned to him with a fleeting, almost startled expression. "Ethan, I think something's about to change again," she whispered, her voice catching slightly. Ethan's heart skipped. The unease in her tone mirrored a curiosity he couldn't ignore. He didn't know what she meant, but he felt the weight of it settle between them, as if the quiet moment had been a pause before a storm of emotion. They walked back toward the car in silence, the park now painted in the soft hues of twilight. Streetlights flickered on, casting gentle glows on the pavement. Ethan noticed Lily's steps were lighter, though her eyes still held that quiet tension he couldn't shake. "I didn't expect the city to feel so different," Lily said after a while, voice barely above the hum of traffic. "Even familiar streets feel strange after a long time away." Ethan nodded. "I know what you mean. Things look the same, but they carry different memories now. They make you notice new things, and sometimes remind you of what's gone." She glanced at him briefly, then looked away. "It's harder than I thought, being back. Not that I didn't want to come, but the past has a way of catching up, doesn't it?" "Yes," Ethan admitted softly. "It does. But sometimes it also brings you clarity, a chance to see what's really important and who you want near you." Lily's gaze softened. "And who is important to you?" she asked, a faint challenge in her voice, though gentle. Ethan paused, feeling the weight of the question. He wanted to answer honestly, but he also didn't want to rush the delicate trust forming between them. "People who matter stay with you, even if things change," he said carefully. Her lips curved into a tentative smile. "I guess that includes old friends, huh?" "Yes," he said, smiling. "And sometimes it includes new perspectives of them, too. People grow, change, and sometimes that's even better than remembering them the way they were." Lily fell silent again, staring at the glow of a nearby cafe. The moment was fragile, charged with emotion and unspoken words. Ethan realized he was holding his breath without knowing it. He didn't want to break the quiet rhythm that had settled between them. When they reached Claire's car, Lily turned toward him. "Do you want to grab dinner? Just us, before it gets late?" Ethan's heart lifted. "I'd like that," he said. They drove to a small, cozy diner on the corner of the street. The neon lights painted their faces in warm colors, making the ordinary moment feel intimate. They sat across from each other, menus in hand, though neither really looked at the food options. Instead, they talked about small things: Claire's new job, the changes in the neighborhood, old memories that made them laugh. Every now and then, Lily's gaze would drift to him, a quiet intensity in her eyes, like she was searching for something. At one point, Ethan noticed a fleeting shadow of sadness cross her face. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She shook her head slightly, smiling faintly. "I think sometimes I carry pieces of the past that don't quite fit here, and seeing you, it reminds me of those pieces." He reached across the table, lightly touching her hand. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said softly. "Even if the pieces are heavy, you can share the load." Lily's eyes met his. lingering there, unblinking. For a moment, it felt like time had slowed, the world outside fading into soft blurs. She drew a slow breath, and for the first time all afternoon, she seemed grounded, present. After dinner, they walked back to the car under the streetlights, the city quiet now except for the distant hum of cars. Lily paused, looking up at the stars that had begun to appear. I forgot how comforting it can be, just to breathe and watch the world around you. Ethan nodded. Sometimes stillness tells you more than words ever could, and sometimes it shows you what you've been missing. She turned to him, a thoughtful look on her face. Ethan, there's something I've been meaning to tell you, something I wasn't ready for before, but now I think I need to. He looked at her, heart pounding, sensing the weight of the moment. The stillness he had noticed since the bus stop had shifted slightly, charged now with anticipation and unspoken truth. Her hand hovered near his, a tremor in her fingers. Ethan held his breath, unsure what was coming, but ready to face it with her. And then, before she could speak, a sound from the diner behind them made them both turn, a sudden noise that caught them off guard. Lily flinched slightly, and Ethan felt the tension spike, a question hanging in the air, unasked and unanswered. Ethan turned slowly toward the diner, but the noise had already faded into the hum of the street. Lily's hand lingered near his for a moment longer, then she pulled it back, a small, nervous laugh escaping her. I guess I wasn't ready for that, she admitted softly, eyes darting away from his. Ethan smiled gently. It's okay. We don't have to be ready for everything at once. Some things reveal themselves in time. They walked in silence for a few minutes, the night air cool against their skin. The city felt quiet now, as though it were holding its breath with them. Ethan noticed the way Lily's shoulders had relaxed slightly, but her eyes still carried that trace of tension, the echo of whatever she had been holding back all day. I've been thinking, Lily said, voice low but steady, about the moments I missed, about people I let drift away, including you. She stopped walking, looking up at him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. Ethan searched her face, trying to read the mixture of honesty and vulnerability there. I'm here now, he said simply, and you're here. That's what matters. She smiled softly, almost shyly, and for the first time all day, it felt like the weight she carried was slightly lifted. They continued walking, past the quiet streets and dimly lit houses, until they reached a small park near her temporary apartment. A gentle breeze moved through the trees, and the soft rustling of leaves filled the air. They sat on a bench under one of the trees, letting the quiet stretch between them. Ethan noticed the way her eyes reflected the faint glow of the streetlights, catching the soft gold of the night. She seemed different now. Not just in the way she carried herself, but in how she allowed herself to be present. Ethan, she said finally, voice barely above a whisper, thank you for today, for noticing, for being patient. I didn't realize how much I needed it. You don't have to thank me, he replied. I'm just glad you let me be here. Lily looked down at her hands, fidgeting slightly, then met his gaze again. I think I've changed, yes, but I'm also realizing some things don't change. Some people remain important, even when time shifts everything else. Ethan's heart tightened at her words. He had felt it all day, the change in her, the subtle distance, and yet the undeniable connection that had always existed. I feel the same way, he admitted. Even if things are different, I'm glad we're here together now. A silence settled between them, but it felt comforting, full of understanding rather than emptiness. Lily leaned slightly closer, her expression soft, and Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, a quiet, steady reassurance that this still moment mattered. After a while, she stood and stretched, glancing up at the night sky. "I think I'm ready to let some things go," she said. "Not everything, but enough to move forward." Ethan smiled. "And I'll be here, step by step." They walked slowly back toward her apartment, the night wrapping around them like a gentle hug. Every step felt lighter, though the weight of the day still lingered, a reminder of change, growth, and the quiet power of moments shared. When they reached her door, Lily paused, looking up at him with a small, hopeful smile. "Today was more than I expected. Thank you, Ethan." He nodded, words unnecessary. Some things were felt rather than spoken. As she stepped inside, he lingered at the door for a moment, watching her go. The night was calm, the city quiet. Yet the memory of this day, the stillness, the subtle shifts, the connection, would stay with him for a long time. As he walked back to his car, Ethan realized something profound. Change didn't erase the past, it only gave it new shape. And sometimes, noticing it, being present for someone, could make even the quietest, stillest moments unforgettable. That night, the city seemed softer, calmer, and Ethan carried the memory of Lily's quiet smile like a light in the dark, proof that some encounters, some changes, could leave a lasting mark on the heart. The day had started with uncertainty, with hesitation, and yet it ended with clarity, an understanding that sometimes the people we notice most profoundly are the ones who remind us of who we were, who we are, and who we could become. And in that still moment, Ethan knew he would never forget the way Lily had looked at him, the way she had shifted in subtle, undeniable ways, and the quiet, powerful connection they shared. The night closed softly around him, full of possibilities, of change, and of moments yet to come. The story ended, but the memory lingered, quiet, beautiful, and unforgettable.